Hello and welcome back, all you furry fans, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where I, Lynch, will be painting today the Space Wolves for the Horus Heresy. They only lost out by 1 vote last week between the Space Wolves and the Death Guard. It was very, very neck and neck for quite a while. So I figured that this week I would paint the Space Wolves for you furry Viking fans out there that voted. So before we dive in, if you enjoy what I do, then please consider to hit the like, subscribe and the hype and all that sort of free buttons down below. Just give them all a click. I know you hear it from everybody, but I may as well just mention it. I'm only a small channel, and you know, I need all the help I can get, really. So, but thank you anyway for clicking in and yeah, watching my stuff and enjoying what I do. Makes me very happy. So with all that bump out the way with, let us grab our paintbrushes and our snowmobiles, and let's dive straight into this. However, before we get started, we're going to need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I've used in this video today, alongside which we're going to need a nice chunky fluffy brush, a medium-sized basing brush, and of course, where would we be without our teeny weeny teeny tiny brush for all of those teeny tiny wolfy places. So we're going to start out by using a black acrylic primer, just going all over the model. Add a couple of extra close combat weapons, so I thought it would really fit that Space Wolf theme. So once it's dry and all that, we're then going to grab a nice fluffy brush, and it's Corvus Black. And then what we're going to do is that we're just going to dry brush all over the miniature. This is also going to be covering the, or kind of like pre-highlighting all our black areas. So I think it's going to be the backpack and the shoulder pads and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a nice dry brush. Next up, we're then going to introduce a little bit of this Incubi darkness. So it's a nice kind of a dark blue, and I sort of noticed that, well, not only that the paint's kind of on its way out, but the overall kind of like tone of the Space Wolves, there is a bit of a blue hue to the paint. So I thought this would be a good one to use. So again, we're just going to go over the armor of this miniature, just using this little bit of Incubi darkness. Next on the list is to add some Storm Vermin fur, just a little bit, just to start out with. And then as we build up our blends and our shades, our colours, we're going to add a little bit more of the Storm Vermin fur each time, just to build up a nice contrast. Now, after a little while of just playing around with using pure Storm Vermin fur, it's looking pretty darn good. It's looking still a little bit dull, but the 30k Space Wolves colour is kind of meant to be dull. I don't know if it is meant to be dull, but it's quite a drab kind of bluey grey, really. So always with dry brushing, less is more, so just add in a little bit at a time. If it doesn't look as sort of bright as you want it, just keep adding just in increments, very small increments, because if you add too much at once, then it will kind of wreck it, and then you have to kind of respray it and start all over again. So I'm going to move on to using Administratum Grey. We're just going to need just a tiny bit of this, and we're going to be using this to highlight via dry brushing. So again, less is more. So I'm just going to try and pick out these highlights, these raised areas, and then that should make it pop and stand out just a little bit more. So after the highlighting, it should turn out something like this. Now it does look a little bit, again, sort of a bit drab, a bit boring, a bit grey. But now I'm going to start to introduce a little bit more variety into this miniature. So to start out with, I was going to paint, not too sure, maybe both or maybe just the one shoulder pad in a black. And the easiest way to do this is with something like a contrast paint or a speed paint. And then we're just going to apply this just over either the one shoulder pad, you could do both, you could do the backpack. I think I'm going to leave the backpack in that grey for now. And yeah, if I change my mind, I might come back to it later. But I think I might do the little vents on either side. Next up, we're going to use our black, our Horus black, and we're going to add a little bit of red. And for this is going to be our secondary colour. And you can add this on to perhaps the other shoulder pad if you wanted. You could add this onto the knee pads, which is what I'm going to be doing. You can sort of just add it on anywhere you like, but we're going to do a bit of a 50-50 mix to start out with, making a bit of a darker red. And then we can always just add in more of our lovely Mephiston red just to do a little bit of wet blending, just to make the contrast. Make it more contrast. You know, you get what I mean. Right, so here's how we're looking. So went back over and just sort of re-highlighted a little bit the knee pads, and then I thought I'd just show a little bit of symmetry with that and just had the handle of the axe in a red, but you can paint it whatever colour you like. I also went over the face grill in the black just because I thought it just looked a little bit more meaner. Now, I'm going to move over to using a little bit of metallics. So I've got this lovely brass scorpion, which is a nice sort of darker gold. It's more subdued, it's not as kind of bright and fanciful, because Space Wolves are neither bright nor fanciful. And we're going to go over effectively as much trim as you like. So I'm just going to start out with the shoulder pads, and I might go over some of the sort of bits on the helmet as well, just to add a little bit of bling. And this is what it looks like so far. So I did a few extra little bits, just kind of round on my torso here. If he's a sort of a captain, sergeant, whatever, you could do the rest of the trim as well around the armor in the gold. But I reckon that maybe this guy's like a veteran or something. Who knows? Who knows? So I'm going to move on to using some silver. So I have this Iron Warriors, and then just with a nice kind of medium-sized brush, we're just going to go over the Under Armour areas and the weapons and that sort of thing, just to pick out all the silvery bits. This brush is definitely on its way out. It's becoming very tricky to manage, and while you're doing the Under Armour, all the kind of silvery bits, if you happen to go over onto your armor, I don't think it matters so much, because it will show just a little bit of chipping, a little bit of battle damage, that sort of thing, and it just kind of adds a little something to the miniature. Unless you wanted it really nice and clean, then of course, you know, don't use something that's framed to bits. Use something that's a little bit more precise, and you'll get a nice, much better control. So while we're going over the kind of the metal areas, we can also just go over the gold as well, just to give it a slight highlight, and this will help just to brighten it up in a few areas and just make it a little bit more interesting. Once we're done with the Iron Warriors, I'm just going to use a little bit of this Grey Knight steel, and this is a much lighter silver, and it also has a nice lovely kind of blue hue. Yeah, go with hue to it. So I'm just going to use this just to do the angled sort of blade of the axe, and it's not going to be anything really overly fancy. It's just a quick, just one and done. you could spend absolutely ages sort of blending and making it look really, really nice. But for this purpose, with this series of videos, we're going to try and not cut corners, but try and simplify things just a little bit, just so then we're not spending ages and ages and ages trying to paint and get through like 50, 60 infantry. Because, of course, at the end of the day, we want to get these minis out onto the tabletop and kicking some arse and rolling some dice, because that's the fun bit. That's the thing that we're trying to aim for. And if I can help you guys get there quicker while still delivering a lovely, lovely quality of paint, then then I have done my job, and thank you for watching as well. So I'm not saying thank you for watching because it's the end of the video. No, we still have a little bit of work left to do, like a little bit of freehanding on the shoulder pad there, and the eyes and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's going to do for using that. I'm going to move on to the next step. And the next step, of course, is going to be optional, but using some nail oil. Now, I'm going to choose this over Agrax, because Agrax is a very nice sort of dark brown. It has a nice warmth to it, whereas with Space Wolves, they're very sort of cold. It's kind of blues, so the nail oil is going to help to reflect that kind of color choice. So I'm just going to take this for a little wander around the miniature, just anywhere you think it will be needed. Perhaps just going over the gold here as well, across the trims, that sort of thing. The one thing that it will do is that with the washes, it will take out some of the shine of the metallics. So you could go back over it just using a little bit of the silver, just to kind of help just to pick out the raised areas, and add a little bit more shine back to it. But just so you're aware that that's probably what's going to happen when you put a wash over the top. So after using the nail oil, it should look something like this. Now, since we went over the miniature using a dry brushing method, you shouldn't need too much nail oil in the recesses, because they would have been just passed over while we were dry brushing. So, but it just needed a little bit sort of here and there, and that sort of thing. So one thing that I thought is, again, it is kind of optional, because it depends if you have this lovely Guilliman blue glaze, and I thought it would be quite nice just to put this over the power axe. And just because they have like a lot of frost weapons and that sort of thing, so giving it that little extra sort of blue shine on top of using the Grey Knight steel might just make it stand out and make it pop just a little bit. So just the once over, just with the glaze, you could flaff around and sort of try and manipulate it into certain areas to give sort of certain depth as well. Just kind of like maybe like moving it down towards the bottom there, maybe a little bit more towards the top there as well, just so you get a little bit of difference when it dries. You could play around with that if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. And yeah, we're just going to move over to doing the lenses. All right, here we go. So for some reason I thought that the Space Wolves had green lenses. Don't know why I thought that. I thought that maybe the green might look better perhaps, but just on a quick kind of scan, just to kind of refresh my memory a little bit, they do indeed have red eyes. So that means there's going to be kind of a less paint count as well, which it does help. So I'm going to start out with about a 50-50 of Mephiston to our Corvus Black, like a nice dark red, and we're just going to take this little teeny tiny brush, and I'm going to just paint the first third of the lens, and then you don't really necessarily have to wait for it to dry, but then we're going to then use pure Mephiston red on the first half of the lens, then mix in a little bit of orange for the kind of the tip right at the front, and then going to introduce a tiny little white dot at the back just to show a nice reflective lens look. Now we've come towards the very final part, so we're going to have a little go at doing the logo, doing a little bit of freehand. So had a little look, and I've got the image loaded up already of this kind of stylized snarling wolf. I'm going to start out with, well, we're just going to paint it red, I think. I think it will look quite nice with this, and, you know, kind of have the symmetry with the knees, and that sort of thing. That blue's kind of dried out really, really nicely. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So I've got the image load up here. Got my teeny tiny brush for all of these teeny tiny places, and we're going to get started. And so here we are at the end of the video. So this is how I went about painting the Space Wolves for your Horus Heresy Legions. And you know what, it's turned out pretty well. I'm kind of surprised that kind of the amount of paints that we needed for generally just a kind of a grey and gold mini, but I think it's turned out okay. Space Wolves fans, let me know, did I do them justice? Did I do them right? There is quite the variety of different kind of grey shades when I was looking them up online just for kind of reference pictures. I quite like the sort of the darker, more subdued bluish grey. There's some really quite bright and I wouldn't say vibrant, but lighter greys out there as well. But I think that having that sort of darker grey really contrasts with the brightness of the gold trim that's on there. So I think that this one works out pretty darn well. There's a bunch of links in the description for you to peruse at your own leisure. There's one for Wayland Games, so you want to pick up some minis for yourselves, and it's an affiliate link as well, so any orders that go through there, I get a little bit of something extra. And yeah, that just helps me just to kind of fund more products and more fun stuff to paint and show you guys and gals at home or wherever you like to watch my videos. There's a link for my Instagram, there is a link for my free Discord, and there is... I think that's it. I think that's it for links. But yeah, that was it. Another thing. If you're new and you enjoy this and you got all the way to the end, so thank you ever so much. Well, thank you for everyone for reaching the end anyway. But if you're new, then kindly consider the subscribe button down below. Ring the bell. There's a new button down there called Hype. If you want to consider giving that a click. I'm not quite sure what it does, what it is, but hey, it's free, and while you're down there clicking all the things, you know, liking, commenting, subscribing, you may as well click it as well. Do it. You know you want to. So, with all that said, thank you ever so much for watching. Stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all next time.